Nicole, I got some great news for you.
Ugh, amazing. Rollie, I am desperate for some good news.
I said great news. Get the peanut butter out of your ears. And listen, because we finally have a president who is totally and not disingenuously committed to protecting endangered animals from our bloodthirsty energy industries.
I'm sorry, what? Donald Trump is president.
Yes, exactly. And he's already blasting out executive orders to protect endangered whales from mankind's most ecologically destructive energy extraction technology, offshore wind turbines.
Rollie, have you been listening to the Joe Rogan
podcast? Yeah, big time.
Oh boy, season 3 is going to be tough, isn't it? Okay, everybody, welcome back. It is season 3 of the podcast.
Hey, the bleakest season ever so far.
So far.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough one. We're obviously in some uncharted territory here, not as a country, because he's been president before. But
yeah, but he has not been the king before.
That's true. So this is all
very
brand
uncharted, very cool and new, regal.
Yes.
We're taking America back to when it was great, when we had kings.
He's going to be great for comedy.
I think that is the dumbest thing when people are like, you must be so psyched that Trump's president again. It's like, yeah, I can't wait for everybody to get deported. And what a great time it's going to be to riff about the sadness of humanity.
Yeah, watching migrants being loaded into Guantanamo while Yakety Sax plays in the background.
Ugh.
So we're going to spend the next few years figuring out what all of the horrible climate implications are of this presidency. But there is one particular climate denial talking point that Trump has been hitting early on, and I want to start the season with it because this one is perhaps the dumbest.
All right, lay it on me.
Offshore wind turbines are killing whales.
Hey!
Here is Donald Trump speaking at his recent inauguration.
So we have more oil and gas than any country in the world, and we're going to use it. We're not going to do the wind thing. Big, ugly windmills, they ruin your neighborhood, they ruin you. If you have a house that's near a windmill, guess what? Your house is worth less than half. And did you see up in New England with the whales? You see what's happening? So they had 2 whales killed in about 14 years. Last year and the year before, total, they had 28. So if you're into whales, you don't want windmills either.
Wow.
So he hates wind for a lot of reasons, but he brought up whales. And we're talking about whales this podcast.
Okay, the 28 whales killed.
Yes.
I mean, 2 whales killed in 14 years. I just feel like there were definitely more than that killed. I don't know. But 28, yeah, that sounds like a lot of whales. Yeah. And I'm assuming the wind turbines are slicing them in half like the big sushi rolls.
What's happening is they're breaching out of the water into the wind turbines, and it's chopping them up kind of into, it's filleting them.
It's Free Willy, but instead of over a barrier, it's into the blades of a wind turbine.
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
Right. You know what? That kind of makes sense to me. This guy kind of has some good points.
The whale stuff is actually relatively new, but Trump has been railing against wind for a long time. In the 2010s, Trump tried to sue the Scottish government because he thought that an offshore wind farm would ruin the view from his golf course near Aberdeen.
I kind of remember this happening in real time.
Yes. So there's 3 fun facts about this. One, he lost and was ordered to pay the Scottish government's legal fees.
Okay.
2, between 2012 and 2016, he tweeted about Scottish wind power over 60 times.
Okay.
And 3, Aberdeen is where my fiance Jordan is from.
Hey, cool.
That's pretty fun, right?
It is fun.
But maybe that is just a coincidence, right? That was golf course owner Trump looking out for his business interests and his gorgeous view. And now he's totally an eco-warrior who just happens to believe the same things, but for totally earnest, different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess if I'm trying to interpret this, it's that he got burned by wind turbines in Scotland, and just now he hates wind turbines, and like an ex-girlfriend that broke up with him, and now anything that ex-girlfriend does, he's like, I fucking hate frisbee golf, and I fucking hate knitting now. And so now, like, anytime wind turbines pop up anywhere, he's like, fuck those things, and now he's the fucking king.
I am sure that's part of it, but also, did he get burned by wind turbines? He just said it made the view worse. It's not, they didn't do anything.
I mean, he got burned by having to pay the Scottish government legal fees.
He did that to himself.
Yeah, but you think he thinks that? You think he's got the self-awareness to know that's a self-inflicted wound?
Well, regardless of any of that, on day 1 of this administration, he signed an executive order with an extremely catchy title. Mm-hmm. The title of this executive order is temporary withdrawal of all areas of the outer continental shelf from offshore wind leasing and review of the federal government's leasing and permitting practices for wind projects.
Okay, that is a real mouthful, but it really is self-explanatory.
Yeah, basically. The order says that offshore wind, quote, may lead to grave harm, including negative impacts on navigational safety interests, transportation interests, national security interests, commercial interests, and marine mammals.
Okay, the last one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got whales in.
Oh, shit, and whales too.
Yeah. We got whales in at the very end. So clearly in this executive order, he's like, we got to protect the whales. I love the whales. During his campaign, he went on the Joe Rogan podcast, which you and I are both huge fans of. And he said this.
How about in New Jersey, off the coast of New Jersey, they want to build. The people are going crazy not to build them. But where you have them, the whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they had like 18 come in the last year.
What is what is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. You know, it's a vibration because you have those, those things are 50-story buildings, some of them.
Right, and they're
50.
super sensitive to vibrations
They have
and
those,
sounds.
the wind is rushing, the things are blowing, it's a vibration, and it makes noise.
He has no fucking clue.
Truly, no.
The wind is rushing, the things are blowing, it's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales frickin' crazy. And
Yes.
something happens with them. But for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore. And, and yet the environmentalists...
Conveniently ignored by the
Yeah,
environmental
but the
people.
environmentalists, they don't talk about it.
Right.
I think there's nothing uglier. I see it in Scotland. I see it all over the world. You have this beautiful valley. It's been there for, in civilization, thousands of years, but millions of years. And all of a sudden, you have these ugly windmills up.
So still pissed off about the Scotland thing also.
Denise broke up with me in 2012, and now she thinks
And that's
it's
why
cool.
we're making Denise illegal, because she's bad for whales.
That's right. With my new executive order, get all the ladies named Denise into a big sack and throw them in the ocean.
That's bad for whales too.
No, these whales love that.
Okay. Just one quick thing, because this always drives me crazy, and I know it's a mistake I'm going to make on this podcast. These are wind turbines, not windmills. A windmill is a mill that grinds flour.
Wind, shit, flour.
It uses the power of wind to grind a stone to mill stuff. It's a mill. A turbine is what generates energy. I'm positive I'm going to say windmill, but we should all be saying turbine. Now, to be fair to Donald Trump and his windmills, he's not wrong that more whales are dying and washing up on the shores of the northeastern United States. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which I will hereafter refer to as NOAA.
As in, Noah gonna be here anymore?
Yep. According to NOAA, more than 500 humpback mink and right whales have been seriously injured, stranded on shore, or died prematurely on or near the East Coast since 2017. So he seems right, and that is a quote from NOAA, but it was in an article in Scientific American, which is pretty trustworthy, and that article is called, let me check, Whales Are Dying, But Not From Offshore Wind.
Oh, that's an interesting title.
Yeah,
when we compare it to the thing that Donald Trump just said.
Yeah, I'm curious if that means that they're not dying from offshore wind.
We'll read the title again real quick.
Whales are dying, but not from offshore wind.
And was there any weird punctuation, like whales are dying, exclamation point, but not, and then parenthetical?
No.
Okay.
If anything, I think that would only confuse the message even more.
Yeah.
So as that article title would indicate, blaming whale deaths on wind power is basically just BS. That same article goes on to say that there are, quote, no links whatsoever between the offshore wind development activity and especially the humpback whale mortalities. None, zero, says Duke University marine scientist Douglas Nowacek.
Douglas, no, I checked. What? What's his name?
I think Nowacek, Nowacek.
Okay. Does he go on to speculate what is killing 500?
Rollie, don't get ahead of me in the outline.
Sorry.
To be clear, those whales are uncontroversially dying from other human activities.
I think it's pretty controversial.
No credible sources are blaming those whale deaths on wind farm development. Mostly, they attribute it to ship strikes and entanglement in fishing nets. And as far as right whales go specifically, the same Scientific American article says, for right whales, if you take out neonatal mortality, like newborn and fetal mortality, every documented mortality in the last 25 years of a right whale has been at the hands of some human cause, ship strike or entanglement, Nowacek says. Every single one of them.
Well, I'm just reading this. Noted whale psychologist Donald Trump says it is from the wind turbines.
Okay.
So I don't know what you're...
He's a psychiatrist, okay? He prescribes.
Medication to the whales.
When Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute whale biologist Mark Baumgartner was asked about whale mortality, he said, quote, offshore wind has never been found to be a contributing factor. Of all the right whales that have died over the last several decades, the cause of death for juveniles and adults is always vessel strike or fishing gear entanglement. That's true for the critically endangered North Atlantic right whale as well as other whale species. Curiously, those causes of death aren't mentioned in anti-wind Save the Whale campaigns.
Nicole, I hate to do this, but I didn't listen to a goddamn thing you said after Mark Baumgartner because that was the name of my dentist as a child. Okay, Nicole, I'm seeing we're supposed to do an ad for Eubularia.com. Eubularia. Oh, I think that's actually one of Tom Cruise's kids.
No, Rollie. Eubularia is the impact-focused media agency that helped us launch this podcast.
Oh my God, that's right. Those guys are great. They helped us get this very podcast off the ground.
This podcast?
Hell yeah, player. They consulted on our recording setups and our production workflows. They assisted with edits and distribution, and they were just incredibly helpful in letting us focus on trying to make the best content possible without having to get bogged down in all the annoying stuff that always gets in the way.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate not having to think about any of that.
I don't even know what most of that stuff is. And that's because Eubularia provides high-quality production support for both new and existing shows looking to connect with a wider audience and try to make a difference.
Because if your podcast is trying to make an impact, it shouldn't sound like it was recorded in a dumpster.
Learn more by heading over to eubularia.com.
Jesus, I have no idea how to even start spelling that.
Truly. But lucky for us, it's written down right here. It's Jubilaria.com.
Got a story?
Yes.
Eubularia can help you tell it.
Hey, Nicole.
What's up, Rollie?
I just wanted to remind you to stock up on Patriot Powder for your underground bunker. Ah, yes, good old Patriot Powder has 10,000 grams of fiber in every serving to ward off all that communism.
Rollie, I gotta stop you right there because that sounds like a fake ad for an awful product to highlight the fact that you can listen to this podcast ad-free over on our Patreon page.
Oh, you're talking about our The Climate Deniers Playbook Patreon page with ad-free episodes and that's it?
That's not even close to it.
Huh?
Our Patreon page also has exclusive Patreon-only bonus episodes, as well as perks like being able to vote on future topics and the ability to talk directly to the Climate Deniers Playbook team.
Now, maybe I just ate too many servings of Patriot Powder, but isn't this podcast completely free to produce and requires no additional team members besides me and Rollie?
You are Rollie. How much Patriot Powder did you eat?
Bonus episodes?
Why don't you take 5 and I'll close this one out?
Good, because it just got really blue in here.
Joining the Patreon page keeps the show independent, and it helps us pay the people who work on this podcast. We've got a whole team of researchers and producers, which is good because if one person tried to read through all of this climate denial propaganda on their own, I think their face would melt off like in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, hey, melted face syndrome is actually also a side effect of Patriot Powder, now with extra goo.
So join the Patreon page for fun, exclusive perks, and a community of our other generous, cool patrons who like the kind of content we're producing over here and want to see more of it in the world.
Now, I may be temporarily powder blind, but if I ever regain my sight and see one of you Patreon supporters out on the street, I'm going to give you a big hug, or handshake, or fist bump, or just leave you the hell alone, depending on your personal preference. Patreon.com/deniersplaybook. My
Link in the
teeth are
description.
vibrating.
God damn it, Rollie.
Me, Rollie?
Okay, anyway, after I said your dentist's name, he said it's all ship strikes. It's all ship strikes and fishing net entanglement. And curiously, those causes of death are not mentioned in anti-wind Save the Whale campaigns.
That's not curious at all. That makes a lot of sense because they would want to say that it's the wind.
Sure. Well, take it up with the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute.
I will.
Okay.
Hello, Jonathan Woods Hole? Yes, I'll hold. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
That's the whole music.
Yeah. They got yakety sax credits.
Wow, 2 yakety sax mentions in one podcast.
Or one and then a callback.
Okay. I want to make this a little bit more nuanced. It is hard for a variety of reasons to determine the exact cause of whale deaths. One of those reasons is just that whales are big. And so when they wash up on shore, it's hard for the scientists to like dig through their whole corpse and be like, here's a parasite.
What the fuck? That's really a problem?
That's really a problem.
I would think it's like a giant whale. It's like, oh, there's the problem. It's a 40-foot slash in their hull.
So we can see visible signs of ship strike, but it can be hard to determine if the whale was like already diseased or disoriented, and that's what caused it to get hit by a ship.
That's a little victim blaming, Nicole.
What was the whale wearing?
Yeah. Okay, I get you.
So, like, yes, there are probably whales out there dying of like whale chickenpox or whatever, but the best evidence that we have right now is that the vast majority are dying from ship strikes and net entanglements. That being said, there is some level of uncertainty just because it's like hard to track everything and you're not in the ocean when the whale gets hit. So
theoretically
unless you were driving the boat.
Yeah. Theoretically, a whale could just be so pissed off and aggravated by a wind turbine that it commits suicide.
Yes.
Okay.
In theory. But what's important here is that there are people like Donald Trump and some other people that we'll meet later who are speaking with certainty about this cause despite there being practically zero evidence for it. And one thing that's very annoying about their like attitude of certainty towards all of this is that their arguments blaming offshore wind kind of like shift and morph without committing to a consistent hypothesis. So sometimes it's the surveying equipment used to scan the seafloor for potential wind farms. Sometimes it's blamed on the noise from construction. And then sometimes, like in the Joe Rogan clip we just watched, it's blamed on the vibrations generated by the wind turbines that are already operational. And he goes, ooh, 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 to drive home the point, because sometimes you need an act out to be able to understand.
It just sweetens the joke, you know?
And kind of similarly, the theory of how the noise is actually leading to whale deaths seems to shift without supporting evidence based on who you ask. So sometimes it's that the sound is causing whales to be separated from one another and dying of exhaustion. And then when presented with evidence of ship strikes and fishing equipment, the argument tends to be that whales are becoming disoriented by wind power and committing suicide by thrusting themselves into the path of a boat or simply getting lost and going into it. Or maybe it's like the increased ship traffic associated with wind farm construction leading to more boat strikes. And to be clear, it's a tragedy that these whales are dying in huge numbers, but to decide on a cause and then search for the evidence for it is just like not.
That's just science, Nicole. Okay. You find out what you want to believe. And then you hunt for the specific things that back up that claim, whether or not it's true. And then you say it as loudly and often as you can, because that's just how science works.
Yes, that is correct. So one of the issues that they talk about is like whales are becoming disoriented and going into places they don't normally go, or they're trying to go further away from wind development. So they're like changing their migration patterns. If the issue is whales going to places that they don't normally go, can we think of any other change that could be causing whales to move to new and dangerous areas? Some sort of big change that's happening around the globe?
Donald Trump becoming king. Yes.
And now it's like when Simba became
That's
king
right.
and all the
whales
animals
are showing up to bow.
to see him. They're doing that, but it's the whales with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Obviously, I'm being a little bit coy, but I'm talking about climate change. Just a few facts about how climate change impacts whales. According to the BBC, warming waters change the location of their breeding grounds and make it harder to find prey. Krill populations have dropped by about 80% since the 1970s due to a reduction of sea ice caused by rising sea temperatures. That's from an article called Too Hot for Humpbacks, The Race to Protect Pacific Whales. Too hot for humpbacks.
I know. Humpback, sperm, like bad names for whales.
Yeah.
Give them normal names.
Somebody
Brian,
really...
Kevin Whales.
Kevin Whales?
Yeah, I know. He's my neighbor. Kevin Whales. He's got a kegerator. Nicole, the question I have for you is, did you just fucking say 80% of the krill population has gone away?
According to the BBC.
Holy moly.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's so much.
Yes, that's a lot of krill.
Yeah.
That same article says that a third complication is disease. If a humpback whale is living in suboptimal conditions, then it may cope, but it will also be weakened. Scientists have seen evidence of whales appearing thinner and coated in parasites. So we see this with fauna all over the world where changing temperatures makes them more susceptible to parasites and disease that they normally wouldn't be exposed to. And then Rollie, I'm going to have you read this from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. This is a page on their website called "Are Offshore Wind Farms Harming Right Whales?" Now, Rollie, what do we always say about when the headline is a question?
If it's a question, it's probably no.
Yes. So here, I'll have you read this bolded section that continues on this page.
Large numbers of whale deaths happened before wind development efforts got underway. In 2017, people found 17 dead right whales, a huge number given their small population size. Most of these were found in the Gulf of St. Lawrence in Canada, a place right whales historically visited only occasionally. Another significant die-off happened in 2019. Those deaths were likely influenced by climate change, Baumgartner said.
That's your dentist again.
That's right. They were likely influenced by you not flossing enough, Nicole. Those deaths were likely influenced by climate change, Baumgartner said. Scientists think climate change was changing the distribution of their food. Following their prey, the whales traveled farther north than they had before into areas without protection. It wasn't that people weren't willing to protect them in these locations, simply that no one had expected the whales to show up there. A major shipping channel coupled with lobster and snow crab fisheries were lethal threats to the whales.
Thank you, Rollie.
No problem.
So basically, the climate's changing, their habitat's changing, their food patterns are changing. This wasn't mentioned in here, but other sources have said like their breeding grounds are also changing because since calves don't have as much blubber, they need to be like at the optimal temperature. All of these changes are causing whales to migrate to areas where typically they're not found in large populations or not during that time of year. And that is increasing their vulnerability to getting struck by ships.
Yeah, I mean, this is just another example of like the climate changing being a really complicating factor for everything, for nature, for humanity, and whales changing their breeding patterns and their travel patterns. That's probably being complicated by a changing climate, and it's really hard to parse the details. But people don't like hard, complicated answers to stuff, so it's easy to just pick a thing. And if the thing is a thing you don't like already, it's like, oh, it's wind turbines.
That's
Get them out of
convenient.
here.
Yeah.
For me, it's ultimate frisbee players that are killing these whales.
You play ultimate frisbee.
Not anymore, Nicole.
So there's a very, very compelling theory that climate change is playing a role, just like there's a very uncompelling theory that wind power is responsible for all of it. But do you know what's definitely playing a role in all of these theories?
Hugh Grant.
He has to be stopped.
Gotta be stopped.
He has to be stopped. No, it's the physical damage that we see to whales from ship strikes and fishing nets. Whether they're moving from climate change or because they need to see a psychiatrist, they are getting hit by boats. And there are more boats in this area than ever. According to a report from the Yale School of the Environment called The East Coast Whale Die-Offs, Unraveling the Causes, quote, over the past decade, the volume of goods handled by ports up and down the coast, but especially in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, has grown rapidly. During the coronavirus pandemic, shipping traffic exploded. The number of containers handled at the Port of New York and New Jersey increased by 27% between 2019 and 2022. Just to the south, the Port of Philadelphia is now the fastest growing port in the nation. So in the northeastern United States, we're seeing more boats than ever. We're probably seeing whales in those areas where they didn't used to be, and those two factors together are leading to more whale deaths and injuries.
Dang, that is a bummer.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. And do you think we're doing anything about the actual shit that hurts whales?
Yeah, I want to say yes, but the way you're saying it makes it sound like it's probably no.
You're right. It's no. What you won't hear people saying when they're arguing that wind power kills whales is that we need to make any kind of adjustment to human activities that are absolutely uncontroversially killing whales, like ship strikes and fishing nets.
Well, yeah, we don't wanna though. Let's try all the stuff that's probably not affecting whales in any way and see if that works. And when that doesn't, then maybe we can talk about changing the shipping lanes.
I don't think we're going to do that because Trump bitches about regulations to ship speeds in the same breath as expressing concerns about whales.
What? How does he... What?
Do you want to see?
Yeah, but how does he then... How can you say that and not reference the fact that the ships are killing the whales?
Well, let's learn from the king himself. Here is Trump speaking at a campaign rally in South Carolina last year.
In just one example of Crooked Joe's extreme regulatory attacks, the Biden administration is right now trying to bludgeon the boating and maritime industry. We were just discussing it with a lot of boat companies back there that create a lot of jobs and having a hard time. With a boat speed limit of less than 11 miles an hour, about 10 miles an hour. In other words, like a slow golf cart. It's like think of it, along the entire eastern part of our country. This is supposedly in the name.
It's just so clear he forgot how to say like East Coast or Eastern Seaboard. He's like, Eastern, fuck it.
Think of it, along the entire eastern part of our country. This is supposedly in the name of preventing whale strikes. But you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than hitting a whale with your boat.
Just as a side note, I really tried to find out what he was talking about, and I found several articles that were like, in a bizarre speech, Donald Trump compared getting struck by lightning to hitting a whale with your boat, and we have no idea what the fuck that means.
I mean, that actually makes sense to me, but like only on a technicality. Like if you are a metal boat in an ocean with no higher points and you're in a lightning storm, yeah, you're going to get struck by lightning. And there are not that many whales out there and there's lots of boats. So statistically, you're probably not going to get...
I also personally have a way higher chance of getting struck by lightning than hitting a whale with my boat because I, as a rule, do not go on boats.
Yeah, I don't even think you have a boat.
I don't have a boat. I will throw up almost immediately if I go on a boat. I'm not a boat gal, but I do exist on land where lightning also is.
I mean,
anyway.
But he's not wrong that you are unlikely to hit a whale with your boat. Because there's just so many fucking boats out there that, like, yeah, there's hundreds of thousands of boats.
We don't need to be treating this like it's a real statistic. This is just something he made up.
Yeah.
There has only been, listen to this, one such whale killed off the coast of South Carolina in the last 50 years. But on the other hand, their windmills are causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. Nobody does anything about that. They're washing up on shore. I saw it this weekend. 3 of them came up. You wouldn't see it once a year. Now they're coming up on a weekly basis. The windmills are driving them crazy. They're driving the whales, I think, a little batty. And they're washing up on shore at levels never seen before. And they want to stop your boats 1 in 50 years. Can you imagine that? The Biden speed limit will demolish the charter fishing business, crush boat manufacturers, and desecrate your cherished low country traditions. It's going to desecrate those traditions. That's why today I'm announcing that when I'm reelected, on day 1, I will cancel Biden's ridiculous speed limit regulation. Day one, first day.
Just one funny thing about this clip is him being like, the Biden speed limit, which is like, is everything the Biden blah?
I mean, he's so good at what he does, though, right? Like, he's just like the phrase desecrate your traditions.
You could tell that is the first time he is seeing that phrase because he went, it'll desecrate your traditions. It's going to desecrate those traditions, folks.
Yeah. I mean, but it's exactly the right red meat to like throw to the base right there.
Would whale meat be considered red meat?
No, it's a fish.
It's a mammal.
No, whales are fish, Nicole. I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know though.
Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing, but it's also, he's like, I don't care about ship strikes, but the windmills are driving them crazy. And then what happens? What's killing them after they're driven crazy, which they're not?
No, I mean, in his mind, they are trying to get onto the shore because they're so mad at the ocean and they're dying. And like, I don't get like freaked out by a lot of clips. That clip genuinely startled me.
Really?
With how I'm like, oh, right. He's just doing the like fascist right-wing shit.
Yeah.
And people are into it.
Right. whale shit.
Yeah, I'm genuinely nervous. I'm trying to have a fun time and say right whale, right wing, like that's fun, but I'm like, oh God, that's tough to see. Yeah. All right, I'll snap out of it.
Okay. Well, good. Because speaking of not liking regulations that might protect whales, we got to talk about oil and gas. Baby. We know Trump loves oil and gas. We are going to drill, baby, drill per Donald Trump. In his previous administration, in 2018, he overturned Obama-era regulation and authorized use of seismic air guns to find oil and gas formations deep underneath the Atlantic Ocean. That is from the AP. And you may be wondering, oh, maybe it's those seismic air guns that Trump approved that are driving the whales a little batty.
I wasn't saying that to myself at all. I never dang heard of a seismic air gun before. What does that do?
It is used to survey the bottom of the ocean to see where they're going to drill for oil.
And does it create a horrible sound?
It
that
sure does. And we're going to learn a lot more about that soon. So that seems like it might be a contributing factor. But here's the thing. Those seismic air guns never actually went into operation because by 2020, those efforts were blocked by environmental organizations, including Earth Justice. And whales were part of their argument about like why you shouldn't blast the ocean floor with seismic air guns.
So that's why the Jackass crew got the seismic air guns for cheap.
Exactly.
And blasted them in
with their
Jackass
asses.
4.
Yeah, absolutely. But this kind of does raise the question, how does the construction and surveying of wind farms compare to oil and gas exploration?
Yeah, I guess the question that I have is like, is there validity to surveying pissing whales off? Like what makes whales mad, and does that cause them to, wash up on shore?
So yes, that's a good question. Noise pollution in the ocean is a problem for whales because sound is essential to their like biological and social functions. But there's very little evidence that is what's causing these specific whale deaths that we're talking about. And maybe more importantly, all signs point to the noise pollution caused by wind surveying being way, way less than the noise associated with oil and gas development.
Okay, gotcha. So there's like little evidence that sound is causing whale deaths, and the evidence that there is suggests that if you give a shit about that, you'll want to stop oil and gas surveying more because that's actually got more and worse sound for whales than wind surveying.
Yeah, basically. It's tough to find exact decibel comparisons, and I don't know if it's just because that is not research that's been done, or it's like in a database that we don't have access to, or if it's kind of like because they're different, it's just like hard to compare them in an apples to apples way. But just to show you how much people are thinking about whales during wind construction, I'm going to have you read this. This is from NOAA's FAQ on how they minimize impacts of offshore wind development on whales.
Okay. From NOAA. Offshore wind developers conduct high-resolution geophysical surveys to image the ocean bottom. The noises these surveys produce may disturb marine mammals. This is why offshore wind operators have requested incidental harassment authorizations to allow for level B harassment. The sound from these high-resolution geophysical surveys are very different from seismic air guns used in oil and gas surveys or tactical military sonar. Oh my God, I forgot about military sonar. Of course. They produce much smaller impact zones because, in general, they have lower noise, higher frequency, and narrower beam width. The area within which these sounds might disturb a marine mammal's behavior is orders of magnitude smaller than the impact areas for seismic air guns or military sonar. Any marine mammal exposure to sound from these surveys would be at significantly lower levels and shorter duration, which is associated with less severe impacts to marine mammals.
Yeah, so just to recap and put that into more colloquial terms, the noise that whales are exposed to from wind farms is at a lower volume, it is at a frequency or like a pitch that is less harmful to them, and it is more centralized, so like takes up less space in the ocean than the sound associated with oil and gas exploration.
And military sonar.
Yes.
A thing I truly completely forgot about until just now, and I'm like...
Yeah, they want you to forget about it.
It just seems intuitively like a blast from a military sonar ping might fuck up a whale a little bit more than like the hum of a wind turbine.
Whoa. That's me doing a Donald Trump impression. Well, it's amazing that NOAA FAQ is still live on the website.
Oh, yeah.
As of this recording. But just in case it's not by the time this airs, there's also a BBC article called "Which is Worse for Wildlife, Wind Farms or Oil Drilling?" And full transparency, this article does say that constructing wind turbines can indeed have negative impacts on marine wildlife. But they also say, in no uncertain terms, that oil exploration is worse.
Hey.
Caitlin Fraser, an associate research scientist at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, highlights that with oil and gas, the surveys happen over a longer time period, not just before, but also during extraction. By comparison, evidence from European offshore wind farms suggests that loud noise from wind farm construction tends to be more temporary and containable as it happens during the pile driving phase.
From the top rope.
In Europe, some countries such as Germany now legally oblige offshore wind farm developers to place devices called bubble curtains around the construction sites. That's fun. I like the term bubble curtain.
Bubble curtain.
Yeah.
That sounds very soft.
It sounds very soft, very SpongeBob.
Yeah.
They place bubble curtains around the construction sites to buffer such pile driving noise and protect porpoises and other marine animals. Once the wind farm is in place, it can keep spinning for decades and then be replaced with new turbines on the same land, whereas oil production moves on once one site is exhausted. I'm exhausted. I've been producing oil for so long.
Move along there, Nicole. Find a new site.
So once you suck all the oil out of the ground and then spill it into the Gulf of Mexico, then you have to find a new drilling site and you got to make more noise and keep doing that forever. Whereas once you install a wind farm, you can use that for a long time, even after the wind turbines themselves are out of service and need to be replaced. You can still use that site.
I'm just realizing it's a lot like an electric toothbrush. When you yellow up the bristles from 5 months of using your toothbrush every day, just pop off the head and put
Are
a new
your
one
bristles
on.
yellow after 5 months?
Are your bristles yellow on your toothbrush?
This episode about whales is weirdly
Call
also a
Dr.
lot
Baumgartner.
about your dental health.
I love Dr. Bob. You know what? Floss every day, retainers every night, keeps a tooth healthy, wealthy, and white.
Healthy, wealthy, and white.
Yeah,
Seems like maybe we don't
I
want to
could
have
hear
that on our. Yeah, that's tough.
I started that sentence knowing it was going to end with "and white,"
You could
and I
have
was
said
like,
bright.
"Teeth bright." Yeah.
Okay, we got to stop talking about dentists. So basically the sounds associated with oil and gas exploration are way worse for whales than wind turbines. And that's not even counting how bad climate change is for whales, which is caused by fossil fuels. So if we're going to talk about wind damaging whales, you have to talk about oil and gas too.
I think you'll find that you don't.
And soon it will be illegal too.
Yeah.
And I know I just threw a lot at you. So let's just take a second to recap. Offshore wind isn't perfect. That's a whole other podcast. There are plenty of discussions to be had about the efficacy and the economic viability and even the environmental impacts of wind. That's a different podcast. This is the whale episode. There are meaningful discussions to be had about wind's cost and, yes, its potential damage to megafauna like whales. But that is not what this is. This is a beautiful tapestry of misinformation. And it's especially fucked up because it portends to be about environmental concerns. And that lets the right wing call actual environmentalists frauds for, quote unquote, not caring about the whales.
Yeah. And it's sort of this double bluff where they don't care about whales. But then they're like, oh, the people who do care about whales, you actually don't care about whales, which makes us the ones who really care about the whales.
Yes. You say you care about the environment. You don't care about whales. Ergo, any argument you make is suspect. And look, I am sure that there are true dyed-in-the-wool environmentalists out there who are like, wind is a problem for these reasons. But when people like Donald Trump pretend to care about these particular whales in this particular location, that can undermine actual environmentalists who care about both whales and also renewable energy.
Yeah, I mean, a very convenient ally to find if you're in the oil and gas world.
Totally.
Is an environmentalist in this area that feels that wind development is negatively impacting the whale population. So if you're the oil and gas industry, it's fucking Christmas for you to find that person because you're like, oh, we got environmentalists too.
Exxon, open your present first.
True, yeah. I mean,
I got you a compromised environmentalist.
And it might not even be a compromised environmentalist. That's the fucking thing. That's it might just be a person, a real environmentalist who genuinely believes that and is not taking oil and gas money, but is susceptible to the enemy of the enemy is the friend conundrum, which is also my favorite episode of Friends. The one with the enemy of the enemy is the friend. Where Gunther and Phoebe team up to take down Rachel.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I think to like kind of delve into that a little bit more, we need to sort of understand how this narrative developed over time, and like, is this a wellspring of the environmental movement that the fossil fuel industry latched onto, or is it maybe a little bit astroturfed? I mean, did Donald Trump think of it himself? Obviously
No,
not. He's never had an idea in his entire life. But he does seem to get lots of his ideas from Fox News.
Hey.
And Media Matters has done a timeline of how this argument has appeared on Fox News. In 2022, they had a fishing industry rep on to talk about how bad wind power is.
Fishing industry rep. So you're saying whales are fish. Gotcha, Nicole.
They're not fish.
Okay.
And then in 2023, Fox aired a whopping 54 segments about wind turbines killing whales. And I just want to take a peek at a couple of them because I think they're pretty fun. Here's one from our boy, Tucker Carlson.
No. Can we do one episode that doesn't have Tucker Carlson in it? Okay. Well, he's putting my kids through college.
Living in an age when the precise opposite is true of almost every claim you hear in public, so it probably shouldn't shock you that the people who care the least about the natural world are self-proclaimed environmentalists.
Wow. What a hot start to a segment. Folks, it's opposite world and everything is backwards. I'm Tucker Carlson, and no, I'm not.
I also like that his environmentalist voice is, I'm an environmentalist.
I'm the old man who lives by the bay.
They're happy to wreck it for profit. They make the oil companies look like deep environmentalists. And if you doubt that, take a look at what's happening off the east coast of the United States. So-called green NGOs, supported, of course, by the people they give money to in the Biden administration, are backing the construction of massive offshore wind turbines that appear to be killing large numbers of whales. In just the last 2 months, at least 10 dead whales have washed ashore in New York and New Jersey. And on Monday, it happened again. A 35-foot male humpback whale died and washed up on Lido Beach in Nassau County in Long Island.
Giving voice to the voiceless. I guess they do have voices because they sing.
They have beautiful voices.
Yeah, giving language to the whales whose complex language we don't speak.
I mean, he did kind of say, like, apparently there. So it's like apparently killing whale. It's like it's a level of hesitancy that I don't think Fox News always has. So I think he's like at least partially aware that this is not really a thing, or that, you know, this might not be a thing.
If only he'd couched his claims about Dominion with the same uncertainty, he might still work there.
Yeah. Dominion apparently stole the election for Joe Biden, who is apparently murdering the absolute piss out of every whale in the world.
So that was Tucker. And then here's one from the Fox Business show, The Bottom Line, with Dagan and Duffy.
A show I've never fucking heard of before.
But you do know one of the hosts as current Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy.
Oh, no. Wait, that's his job before he became Secretary of Transportation?
Yeah.
And after he was a cast member on Real World Boston.
This is from 2023. This is New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith on The Bottom Line with Dagan and Duffy.
He joins us now. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
How far away are you from getting some answers about whether these wind turbines have some role or primary cause of these whales turning up dead?
Oh, that's nice. They're asking the right questions. Like, how close is the science to figuring out whether this is a thing that we should be mad about or not? That's fine, right?
It's a great question. Right now, the administration is really engaging in kind of like a culture of denial. They just say there's no evidence. Well, are they looking? How hard? I'm demanding, and I'm not the only one. I'm joined by...
I like that. He's like, we've asked the government. The government looked into it, and they said it wasn't a thing. But I think it's a thing. So I'm going to get mad, and I'm going to go on fucking The Bottom Line with Dagan and Duffy. And regardless of what the government says, I'm going to have a conclusion.
This is like when my dad asks me a question and he doesn't like the answer, so he just keeps asking me the question, hoping I'll say something else. When he's like, Nicole, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe Chinese food. And then 10 minutes later, he'll be like, where do you want to go for dinner tonight?
Did you say Jose O'Shea's?
Yeah, fine, we'll go there.
I mean,
don't care.
It's an effective strategy, Nicole.
Apparently.
Wow, so this guy's onto something.
Evidence. Well, are they looking? How hard? I'm demanding, and I'm not the only one. I'm joined by people like Andy Harris, that I know Sean knows him well, and Jeff Van Drew in southern New Jersey, demanding that there be a GAO report, a study about how well or poorly the environmental impact statements have been done. I read the environmental.
I want a study on the studies. I know you did a study, but the studies didn't say the thing I wanted them to say.
Yeah,
so
dog, I heard you like studies, so I put a study in your study.
That's pimp my study.
Pimp my study.
Yeah.
Environmental impact statement, and was completely underwhelmed by it when I read it. It has not answered the questions.
Who has not been underwhelmed by an environmental impact study? Who's ever reading an EIR and being like, wow, a page turner?
I guess, yeah, there are sections that are like, uh-oh, they're really killing the trout, huh?
Yeah. They're always phrased as like, per our previous analysis, we've discovered that a mortality event exceeding 60% might be a possible outcome of this construction. That's like, it's not, the most you could ever be is whelmed.
I mean, that sounded a lot like your dad, Steve Conlan, reading an environmental impact report.
My dad's hard to do an impression of because he's very soft-spoken.
Either your impression of your dad is spot on, or your impression of your dad is just your impression of a nerd.
They're very similar.
It keeps talking about we can mitigate this and mitigate that. Why do you have to mitigate so much harm to the habitat, to the entirety of the fish population in the affected area? And the area just in the Northeast alone, Sean, is twice as big as anything we've ever dreamed of before. Twice as big as the Grand Canyon, for example. Mm-hmm. And the poles they're putting in, or will put in, if this is approved, and it's still in the test phase, are about 900 feet. Now that's 9 times the distance you went up when you were 3 times world champion for that, in climbing those poles.
Okay, look, Climate Deniers Playbook audience, it turns out that the current Secretary of Transportation might have gotten his job because of his ability to transport himself directly up a pole.
Shouldn't he be in charge of like forestry or something if he's the champion lumberjack?
I mean, I would not want him to be in charge of forestry. Look how quick I can destroy these trees.
It's also, just real quick, this guy's argument is basically like, some things are bigger than other things. Yeah, okay. That doesn't mean anything.
Well, I mean, are you saying some things aren't bigger than other things, Nicole?
How big is a coal-fired power plant compared to one of the poles that Sean Duffy climbed up? I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Size. I think you agree it's a different size?
Yeah, I can
Ergo,
agree it's
bigger than other things. Checkmate. Check and mate, Nicole. You played yourself. You walked right into your own trap, which was bigger than my trap.
I mean, that is an enormous height. It's as high as the Chrysler Building in New York City. 3 football fields and then some. That's how big it is. And we have a situation where they're going to just pile them down with pile drivers, and the noise that will come from that will kill all kinds of particularly whether it be dolphin or whales. And right now, the surveillance that's being done, we believe, is having a deleterious effect on the whale population.
I would love to see that sentence written out. He started with particularly, whether it be dolphins or whales.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not particularly.
This is outrageous.
So
no
Chris,
answers.
Chris, the secret to success in Washington is bipartisanship, right? So you just mentioned Andy Harris, Jeff Van Drew, and yourself. Those are 3 Republicans. I thought saving whales was a liberal issue. Are Democrats joining you in this call to go, at least we should do studies to see what's killing the darn whales?
Not yet, but I do believe that they will join us.
Did you hear that?
It's outrageous.
He just dropped the word outrageous midway after. He's like, are the Democrats helping you? Are the Democrats joining you doing studies?
Well,
outrageous.
So if any of our listeners at home want to watch 52 more segments about how much whales hate wind turbines.
More than 1 per week in 2023. Way to go, Fox News.
You can look those up on your own. We're just going to watch those 2. But I just wanted to show you that Fox News is really beating the drum on television. But as I was researching and looking into this, I also found out that there are a bunch of grassroots groups on the ground in these areas who are protesting against wind development. And they at least appear to really believe that wind is the #1 problem facing whale populations.
Okay.
We're talking about groups with names like Save the Whale Coalition and the American Coalition for Ocean Protection, stuff like that. They've got their hearts in the right place, right?
Yes.
Right? Would it surprise you to learn that a ton of these local, homegrown, grassroots environmentalist groups just looking out for the health and well-being of whales are actually connected to a network of climate-denying right-wing policy think tanks with dark money ties to legacy fossil fuel interests?
Oh, dang it. I mean, no, it doesn't surprise me to learn that, only because this is the third season of this podcast, and that's been the thing around this time of every episode.
Yes.
Where it's like, gotcha! But why don't you tell me more about the map that you just pulled up on your screen that looks like a Rorschach test for circles?
So this Rorschach test for circles was part of a publication called Against the Wind, a map of the anti-offshore wind network in the eastern United States by the Brown University Climate and Development Lab. And they basically track how this argument originated, who is funding it, who is part of it. I personally find this big web a little confusing to follow.
Okay.
There are just way too many circles on this web for us to go to on the podcast, but
it
we will.
It does look like a Charlie Day, Always Sunny, like corkboard thing.
It does. We'll drop a link in the show notes, so if you could see it to try to decipher for yourself, please be my guest. But thankfully, the authors also provided some context to help understand what we're looking at. And Rollie, I would like you to just read this section, which uses words instead of circles.
Words, the circles of tomorrow. Here we go. Though donor-advised funds and disclosure issues make it impossible to reveal all direct funding sources, we identify a direction of influence extending from dark money donors and fossil fuel organizations to grassroots-appearing groups. We identified 6 major fossil fuel and dark money donors, including the Charles Koch Foundation, the Charles Koch Institute, Donors Trust, the State Policy Network, and the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers Association, that fund 17 think tanks involved in the anti-offshore wind network. The think tanks, in turn, influence local anti-offshore wind groups by providing financial resources, legal support, and personnel. We identify a total of $72,276,593 in contributions from the 6 major donors to groups in the network between 2017 and 2021. Of these donations, $16,278,401 have gone to members of the American Coalition for Ocean Protection.
So, yeah, this influence map is quite messy and intentionally difficult to track. And a lot of times the support given to the alleged environmental groups comes in the form of legal and strategic coordination rather than direct traceable financial support. And just to give you a sense of how intentional and well-planned this long-term strategy is, could you please read this one last quote from the Brown Report?
Absolutely. While recent years have seen a rise in opposition to offshore wind, the involvement of conservative think tanks appears to have been seeded a decade ago. In 2012, as a senior fellow at the American Tradition Institute, a climate denial think tank, John Droz helped organize an energy conference that emerged as a who's who of climate deniers and local residents around the country who are trying to block projects. Prior to this 2012 conference, Droz edited a strategy memo that outlined a national professional PR campaign to cause, quote, subversion in message of wind industry so that it effectively becomes so bad no one wants to admit in public they are for it, much like wind has done to coal by turning green to black and clean to dirty. This campaign, quote, must appear as a groundswell among grassroots. The tactics delineated in this memo include trainings for local anti-offshore wind groups, coordinated messaging and advertisements, and collaborations with other interest groups such as traditional environmentalists, the Tea Party, and property rights organizations. The document also recommends joining forces with think tanks like Heartland, CEI, and CFACT, which were represented at the conference.
So they're just straight up admitting that this is their strategy to work with Heartland and CEI and CFACT, and that is not even mentioning a bunch of the other policy groups that are linked in that big circle map. I mean, we're talking about the Federalist Society, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, the CO2 Coalition, and dear God, we didn't even mention the Cesar Rodney Institute, which is arguably the tip of the spear in this whole ordeal, and who straight up founded Save Our Beach Views and ACOP, the American Coalition for Ocean Protection.
I love that their organization name is just a cop. And I guess it's good to note here that there might be a couple of people whose hearts are actually in the right place, in my opinion, misguided whale conservationists who have joined these groups, or even in a ragtag way started some of these groups, but it is very hard to take them seriously when we see the millions of dollars that the oil and gas industry from multiple states away is pumping into these little groups because they have the same enemy, which is wind turbines.
Yeah. And it would be easier for me to take these people's complaints seriously if they were being like, I love whales and I am partnering with groups that are associated with the fossil fuel industry because I think it is worth it to protect the whales in this circumstance. But to be clear, I don't think that the stuff the oil companies are doing is good for whales either.
Right.
But it's not that. There's no acknowledgement of any kind of potential conflict of interest or overall wanting to protect whales. It is just about grinding this one specific axe against offshore wind development.
Classic.
Just to wrap things up, the argument that's being made here is whales are dying because wind farm surveying equipment, or maybe construction, or maybe the woo-woo-woo operation.
The woo-woo-woo.
It's making so much noise that it's deafening and disorienting whales, causing them to swim into other deadly human activities that are totally fine, and we shouldn't stop doing them, and we shouldn't change at all. And it's definitely not that the whales are following their food sources because of climate change.
These whales keep swimming into our bullets.
And just to be clear, Donald Trump does not give a shit about whales, and he's using
Allegedly.
He's using them to pass legislation to support his agenda. And I know that no reasonable person on earth was like, I think Donald Trump really cares about the whales. But I'm bringing it up because offshore wind is on life support now. And this whale phenomenon is part of the narrative that is driving its demise. And that's a problem because greening our energy sector requires a diverse mix of energy sources, and offshore wind could be an important option for places like the Northeast, where other renewable sources like solar and onshore wind might not be as viable of options due to the characteristics of the region.
Yeah.
And just as evidence for all of this, wind projects are getting canceled. Shell is canceling a $1 billion offshore project, according to the Washington Post. After the election, Shell pulled out of a major turbine project off New Jersey, and an Italian undersea cable maker nixed a factory in Massachusetts that was set to employ hundreds at the site of an old coal-fired power plant. So that's bad because the big promise of the renewable energy transition is that there would be jobs for people who used to work in fossil fuels, and now those are going away.
Well, we're going to bring back coal jobs, Nicole.
Which are good and healthy.
Yeah.
And then on February 3rd, New Jersey's Board of Public Utilities decided not to buy power from any wind projects in its latest round of bidding, given that the two companies had pulled out and the remaining one had lost Shell as a partner.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah,
we're not going to buy any power from those groups that can't make power anymore.
2 days later, the CEO of the Norwegian oil company Equinor, Anders Opedal, said on an earnings call that the company was cutting its global investments in renewables by half through 2027 and acknowledged the U.S. wind market was, quote, challenging.
Damn.
And the Trump administration is working to reject permits, rescind granted permits, and even stop work on wind farms under construction. And it's sort of unclear on where the progress is at with this. The offshore wind industry is still basically looking for clarity about what it can and can't do, which I think we're all kind of doing thanks to whatever the fuck laws are happening right now. There are about 5 offshore wind projects that are currently under construction, and those are still moving along, but everything else is up in the air.
Much like wind.
Yes. And my favorite George Clooney movie.
Oh, Ocean's 13.
Exactly.
When the guy does the backflip. That's Ocean's 11. God, that was a good backflip.
Right now, there's no news of Donald Trump actually canceling any projects yet that I can find, but states like New York have multiple projects in the pipeline without full approval yet that they were going to rely on to meet their renewable goals, and now they don't know what will happen with those, and there's not another plan in place for how to meet the renewable goals without the offshore wind.
Yeah, I mean, I get why there's not another plan in place, because that was their plan, and they were just doing that plan. Yeah, that sucks. I wonder where they're going to try to get this renewable energy from, or maybe there's just no way to do it. If they're going to be able to
at all, yeah. And
thank God we closed that nuclear plant, right?
Now, can we say that whale misinformation is causing the demise of the wind industry? No, but it was specifically mentioned in the executive order that is causing the demise of the wind industry.
Yeah. I mean, that is a massive bummer that, like, these dumb and unevidenced points that, like, wind was in some way the leading cause of whale deaths, I guess, proliferated long enough for Donald Trump to cite them as important reasons to shut down offshore wind projects.
Yes.
And it's just kind of another example of, like, scientists do a lot of work and renewable energy is doing such a good job at, like, actually producing carbon-free energy. And all it takes to derail that is 54 fucking segments on Fox News in a year and a bunch of astroturfed anti-wind turbine groups and some guy with a golf course to, like, shutter a very promising technology. That's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Yep. All right. So what's the takeaway here, Nicole? Be sad. Check.
Yeah, we said we got that. And I mean, the takeaway is, like, when you hear an argument from somebody who you suspect is maybe not acting in good faith about the environmental movement or, like, calling climate activists hypocrites over one specific thing, I think you got to ask what their motivation is, what maybe the truth of the situation is, and also any major decision that we make regarding energy is going to require trade-offs. I read this book by Vincent Beiser called Power Metal, which I'd love to talk about on the show sometime, where he's like, there's not really a good kind of mining. It's just about, like, trade-offs between how we get our minerals and what's better and worse. And, like, I'm not saying wind turbines are, like, awesome for whales, but in the world of trade-offs, where we exist in this world where we are actively making the ocean as hostile as possible to whales, wind turbines are probably one of the friendliest options, and we can do what we can to mitigate those, and that doesn't mean that they're bad.
Yeah.
Rollie, we're going to wrap things up with
a
improv.
rap. Oh, an improv rap.
We're not rapping.
Got it.
We're going to wrap things up with our improv section, which we like to do because neither of us wants to go to the basement of a bar to do an improv show anymore.
That's right.
I'm going to pitch you this. What if I am Donald Trump, whale psychiatrist, and you are my whale patient?
Oh, okay. There's, like, a big, like, fainting couch that the whale is on. Okay, cool. Okay.
That'd be a big couch for a whale. Okay, thank you for visiting me today.
No problem. This is my appointment.
Wow, I thought you were going to have more of sort of one of those whale voices like I hear on those tapes. You know, the ones that go like, ooh, ooh.
That's just our whale song. This is our normal voice.
Oh, interesting. See, I didn't know that. That's very interesting about whales. So why don't you tell me about your mother?
Okay. Yeah, my mom was killed by an oil boat.
Whoa, TMI.
Okay. Yeah, both my parents have passed away due to being in shipping lanes at the wrong time.
Oh, okay. Is it because they were driven insane by wind turbines going woo 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 woo? Woo 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 woo.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember Arsenio Hall on the doghouse?
Of course, I love Arsenio Hall.
Woo woo woo. Boy, I love that very tall guy.
Do you remember the Insane Clown Posse and their fans go whoop 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 de whoop?
Were they driven insane by windmills?
They were driven insane by just a complete lack of social graces, I think.
Interesting. Very interesting. Remember those clowns that were coming out of the forest for a while? Whatever happened to those?
I actually don't remember that because I do live in the ocean and we're pretty far away from the forest.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So I'm kind of depressed in general. Okay. I just have this, like, habitat that my family has historically had, and, like, whales have just sort of lived in the ocean pretty peacefully, and just
You're telling me now whales live in the ocean?
That's right.
Okay.
You are Donald Trump whale psychiatrist, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we've lived here as, you know, time immemorial, and...
Time immemorial.
Is it immemorium? No, it's immemorial.
Time immemorium.
Okay, Donald. Anyway, yeah, so we've lived in the ocean for quite a long time, and, like, a massive increase in shipping vessels And also military submarines and...
We love our big, beautiful submarines. Those sort of look like whales, like a big metal whale.
You'd have no way of knowing this, but that's very offensive to me.
Well, that's never stopped me before.
Yeah, so that's basically my big problem. Humanity is kind of encroaching into our natural habitat, and it's getting way warmer. Do you have any idea what that's about?
No. Okay, what about this? It seems like you're really struggling with a lot of the changes to the natural environment
That's right,
and the
yeah.
shipping lanes.
And the krill, there's like 20% of the food around the ocean.
Krill. Did you know that Joe Biden made a speed limit law for boats?
Oh, awesome. That's great.
No, it's bad. We hate the speed limit law, don't we? We hate the speed limit law. Biden's speed limit law makes boats go as slow as he is. Anyway, it seems like you're depressed for reasons that are entirely outside of my control. What if I write you a prescription because I am a psychiatrist, which is a prescribing doctor? What if I write you a prescription for Wellbutrin, which is not illegal yet until I let Bobby go wild on health? He's gonna go wild on health.
I'm just going to swim out of here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Oh, he did the song. He did a little bit of a song for me. Do Ave Maria. Do Ave Maria. That's yakety sax. That's whale yakety sax. That's not Ave Maria. The Climate Deniers Playbook was created by Rollie Williams, Ben Boult, and me, Nicole Conlan. Rollie and I are the hosts, and Ben executive produces the show. Editing by Laura Conte and Ben Boult.
The show is also produced by Irene Plagianos, Daniella Philipson, and our associate producer is Miranda Manganaro.
Archival research by Margaux Sachs, with additional research and fact-checking by Carly Rizzuto and Canute Haroldson.
Our theme music was created by the wickedly talented Tony Dominic.
And our show's artwork is by Jordan Dahl, who, okay, yes, used to be my boyfriend, but now he's my fiancé.
Oh, shit. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And special thanks to the Civil Liberties Defense Center.
And to all of you who listen to the show.
And apparently, even the credits.
Rollie, don't neg our listeners.
Well, how else am I going to demonstrate I'm a high-value male?
Oh, God, don't ever say high-value male ever again.
But I am a high-value male.
Why are you wearing that top hat?
Because it makes me tall. Floss every day, retainers every night, keeps a tooth healthy, wealthy, and white.